Yeah, perfect.
Awesome.
Right on.
All righty. So welcome to It's Been a While podcast, everybody. My name is Xavier,
David, as usual.
and we are joined here by Vic Ferrari, retired NYPD detective. This is going to be a story-filled episode, I'm sure. You want to give us a little bit of your background, Vic? Just kind of, what's going on with you, your books, and everything?
Well, first I want to say thank both of you for having me on your show. I really
course.
appreciate it. It's guys like you that make my life easier to sell books.
Yeah.
So I
Absolutely.
wanted to get that out of the way. My name is Vic Ferrari. I'm a retired NYPD detective. I did 20 years with the New York City Police Department. I grew up in the Bronx, New York City. Always wanted to be a police officer. I did 20 years, like I said, with the police department. And after I got out, I got into writing books. And my books, I've written 4 about the New York City Police Department. My books tend to focus on the funny and bizarre stories and things that happened to me and characters throughout my 20-year career.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm sure that, the cast of characters you run into has to be, different every day potentially with a job like that in a city like that.
Yeah, in a place like that.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, it's the public, right? In New York City, there's 9 million people, so you never know what you're going to get. And the New York City Police Department at any given time is between 35,000 and 40,000 members.
Damn.
So there's a lot of characters in there too, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? As well as, they do the screening the best they can to get the best product out there. But sometimes some bad apples or some lunatics get through.
Definitely, yeah. So what years did you work there?
87 to 2007.
2007. Damn, all right. Yeah, and I guess so you've been doing the podcast circuit here for your books a little bit, and I think you got a new one coming out. Is that right?
I'm in development to have my own podcast, but it's not out there yet. I got another book I'm trying to get off the ground. And you guys probably will know. I mean, it's a lot of work to put a podcast together.
It's
Less fun than you'd think.
Yeah, there's.
I mean, it's fun, but
way too many curveballs and just stuff not working when it should, and all ready to record, and then the computer decides to give you the middle finger. So yeah, there's been plenty of
Right,
speed
so you got to
bumps.
definitely be tech savvy, and I'm not.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to be my holdup, but I'll figure it out probably by the end of the summer.
Right,
Right on.
nice. So yeah, your new book that is it has to do with going to a Catholic school, right?
Yeah, my latest book, which isn't out yet, it's in the editing phase, is called Confessions of a Catholic High School Graduate. It's about growing up in my neighborhood in the Bronx and what it was like going to Catholic high school, and basically prepared me for the New York City Police Department because I was rudderless, and Catholic high school, I didn't want to go. I mean, I fought it tooth and nail, but it was probably the best thing that happened to me.
Yeah, I grew up Catholic. I never had to go to a Catholic high school, but my grandma did, and I heard some stories that if that won't prepare you for that, I don't know what will. That there's some.
Yeah, you step out of line, they tune you up.
So just to clarify, the books are nonfiction, or are they fiction, pretty strictly based on your life?
They're novels, but here's the thing. When I started writing books about my former employer, the 2 things I didn't want to do was get people in trouble or divorced.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no, the stories are true, but I changed the names, the dates, the locations. I might move one character into another story, but I mean, there's a lot of truth in it. It's
Gotcha.
just I changed the names and everything.
That
I
makes
mean, I
sense.
couldn't have written these books. I don't think anybody would. I mean, with whatever imagination you have, you'd have to have the experience and been around these people to write these things.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask, do you have any, we definitely want to hear some of your absolute most favorite and bizarre stories going forward in the episode. But do you have any fear, I guess, with sharing the stories? Because it does, it does seem like you said, you're trying to do it the right way to where you don't really get anybody specifically in trouble. But I was wondering just kind of on your nervousness of coming forward with some of it.
Not now, but when I put out NYPD Through the Looking Glass, yeah, I was a nervous wreck because I didn't know A, how the public would deal with it, and B, my peers. I mean, most of my friends are retired or active NYPD members. So, I was kind of nervous putting it out there and wondering what their response would be, because when they heard I was writing a book, they're like, oh, well, don't bring this up and don't bring that up. And I'm like, just relax. And the funny thing is now, after I started writing these books now, they come out of the woodwork. hey, you didn't write about this guy, or you should have put this in there. Now all of a sudden, like, they're kind of like, feeding me shit. You know what I mean? To put in my books.
But yeah, that's good to know, because I was definitely curious on just kind of the it's a bit of a tell all to some extent, and that has to be conflicting in your brain, just kind of like, I want to put these stories out, should I put some of these stories out? So
yeah, I mean, I don't want, like, again, I don't want to cause anybody any grief, and I'm not a sour grapes kind of guy. I mean, look, obviously in life you're going to work with people and know people or live next door to somebody that you can't stand, but I'm not one to like just turn around and go, that guy's a total dick or that guy's a total scumbag. You know what I mean? So I either A, don't write about these people, or B, if I do, I don't like totally blast them.
Right. Try to be unbiased with it at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, and from what I've skimmed a little bit, and I checked out you on a couple other podcasts, and you seem very real. You seem very just just.
I am who I am, whether I like it or not.
So why'd you get out of it? I mean, was it just kind of like, did your time as the officer and ready to kind of move forward, or was there any sort of thing that was your nail in the coffin?
Well, yeah. So things were changing rapidly. Like my last 10 years, I was a detective doing organized crime. I worked in the NYPD's auto crime division. So that's chop shops, exporting stolen vehicles out of the country, the mafia, car theft rings, excuse me. And I loved it. I mean, that was probably my best 10 years. The thing is, like, things were changing, and like looking back, like a 20-year career with the New York City Police Department is like a merry-go-round ride, and it's fun, and you're going up and down, and everything's fun. But if you stay on that merry-go-round too long, Seabiscuit's going to throw you on your head.
Yeah.
So, it's like you can get involved in a shooting, you could get killed, you could get sued, and like, again, I worked in the same place for 10 years. I was very lucky, but things were changing, right? So the supervisors were leaving, the guys I worked with were retiring. And then, I've got new people coming in, and now the focus was more on statistics than police work. So I said, you know what? As much as I don't want to retire and I'm really enjoying this, I'm going to kick myself in the ass if I stay an extra 6 months or a year, or something could happen. And that's a terrible way to live. You know what I mean? When you're not doing something, you're always thinking steps ahead. So I just said, you know what, I could do something else. And I retired relatively young at 41 years old.
Okay, yeah. You had a fair share of stories, to share. So at least it's something to look forward to beyond, like, I got this selection to work with. Might as well tell the 20 years of wildness.
Yeah, but that's just it. I never gave any thought about writing a book. I was already retired many years. And my friends used to tell me, oh, man, you should put that in a book. You should write a book. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should write a book, you know? And then I just started writing these stories out, and then I grew them. And I put it, my books have no beginning, middle, end. You can pick them up and go anywhere. They're just chapters with a theme and short stories in there of, guys I worked with, or, creative criminals or investigative cases I worked in. There's some dark shit in there too.
Yeah.
But I try to put more of a comical spin on things.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. And when like, I guess, so how early on in because you would have been starting pretty young then in the police department.
21.
Damn, yeah. So I guess how early on did you really start to see, like, okay, this isn't like perfect, basically? Like, when did you start to see immediately, or,
Fucking So I grew up, all right, so just to give you a little background on me, right? I grew up in the Bronx. From the age of 10, I knew I wanted to be a New York City police officer. I knew it. When 10, 11 years old, me and my friends used to go up to the post office and steal the wanted posters. Like you go into the post office, the old days, they had the wanted posters, like Billy Ray Johnson wanted for fucking bank robbery in Kansas City. We used to steal the wanted posters and go around the neighborhood. Like, we got the shit kicked out of us. And we're going around, like, going up to, like, rough-looking guys. This you? What I wanted to do. I grew up watching, like, the Rockford Files and the French Connection and the 7-Ups. I grew up watching all these cop movies. So in my mind, I was steps ahead. Like, I was going to go and take names, right? So then you go into the police academy at 21 years old, and the first thing they tell you is, in 6 months, you're hitting the street. Don't listen to a fucking word with these old-time hairbags in the precinct tell you. It's all bullshit. You got to listen to us. And very early on, I knew in the police academy they were full of shit because the instructors in the academy were only like a couple of years older than us. You know, you had like 25, 26 years old. Like, how much street time did they put in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what it is, you quickly find out it's the guys that hide inside and they study for the sergeant's exam or sergeant studying for the lieutenant's exam. And in the police academy, you have steady hours, you have breaks so they can study and put in the time, you know, to move up the ladder in the civil service world. So the police academy, I didn't particularly enjoy because, listen, I respect authority. It's funny, like for a retired cop to say this, but like, I don't like being told what to do. And that was like 6 months of hell for me, just having to sit there and take it. But I did. And then you hit the street, right? And the first thing they tell you in the street is, don't listen to those assholes in the police academy. So you're like, well, like, which isn't? And, you know, when I hit the street, it was in the middle of the crack wars in New York City, right? And I didn't know anybody. So I started my field training in the heart of the South Bronx. And I remember, like, back then, like nowadays they hold your hand. Back then they didn't. So, like, they give you a foot post in the middle of nowhere. Like, I was on Fulton Avenue. You can Google what Fulton Avenue in the Bronx looked like in the 80s. I stood on a street where literally there were abandoned buildings on either side of the street. I'm like, what the fuck is, like, there wasn't anybody around, like nobody human. Like, there were crackheads wandering around with like lamps and shit they stole out of an apartment trying to sell you stuff. And I'm like, you know, a sergeant would come by once or twice a day. He'd pull up, you'd salute him, you'd hand him your memo book. Everything all right? He didn't want to hear, he'd say any questions, but he really didn't want to hear you.
Yeah.
He'd scratch your book and he'd drive off. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, it was like being dropped off in another planet. And then, you know, people, you're 21 years old, you got a gun, you got a radio, you got a nightstick, but people are coming up to you with real problems. And you're like scratching your head like, you're giving them the official police academy answer that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's, it was wild. I mean, there was a couple of incidents. There's a story in my book where in the police, there's one thing the New York City Police Department does not tolerate, is corruption. If you're a corrupt cop, they're going to find you sooner or later, and they are going to throw you in jail, and they are going to throw the book at you. So throughout the police academy, they drum that into our head. If you see corruption, pick up that phone and call the Internal Affairs Action Desk. You have to report corruption. They had prosecutors coming into the police academy giving like these sermons like Pentecostal ministers, like, you know, like, you're going to go to hell and get a live snake shoved up your ass and burn in hell if you don't report corruption. So, like, you're paranoid. So one of my first days on patrol as a rookie cop, I get this woman flags me down and she leads me into this like dirtbag apartment. Like, she's got like sheets stapled over the window. They're using a fucking television set, a cardboard box as a coffee table, right?
Oh, God.
And I'm in there. She's complaining about her boyfriend. I want him out. He doesn't pay the rent. So I'm asking questions. Did he put his hands on you? No. Did he threaten you? No. Well, I can't throw him out. Is he on the lease? Yes. Yeah, he's a dirtbag, but he's not even here. You know what I mean? It's like I referred to the landlord-tenant court and I left, right? So about 2 hours later, another rookie cop who had the adjoining post, he comes up to me and he goes, "We got problems." Fucking, we got problems. Like, what? He goes, Did you respond to such and such a address and talk to a woman about her boyfriend? I go, yeah, that was the first call I had today. He goes, well, she ran into me and she told me that she ran into her boyfriend and the boyfriend told her, don't call the cops no more because he gave me 50 or $100 not to arrest him. So I says, well, I never met the boyfriend. I never seen the guy. He wasn't even around. So he goes, what do you think we should do? I says, I think he's full of shit. He goes, we should call Internal Affairs. I go, on myself? Yeah. He goes, you know, fucking convince, anybody can be convinced of anything, right? This fucking idiot convinces me to call Internal Affairs on myself, right?
Oh, God.
I call Internal Affairs and they think it's a practical joke. They're like, the guy's like, wait a minute. Your name is Officer Ferrari. You're on a foot post literally 6 blocks from here and you want to report corruption on yourself. I'm like, yes. He goes, stand by. We'll be in touch. I'm like, he hangs up the phone. I'm like, be in touch. Like, it's like The Firm. Like, I'm waiting for Wilford Brimley to pull up and they're going to snatch me off the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they're going to, like, right now they're like fucking cutting into my locker, like rummaging through it. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to be in touch. Like, About a half hour later, this Crown Vic pulls up. There's this big, fat Irish captain in uniform, right? Big red face, right? He rolls down the window. He goes, "Who the fuck called internal affairs?" Right? So I raise my hand. He goes, "Get the fuck in the car." So I get in the car, and he goes, I says, "Am I in trouble?" He goes, "Trouble?" He goes, "I'm the duty captain," which isn't internal affairs. He goes, "Internal affairs gave this to me." He goes, "Because they think you're either fucking batshit crazy or you're pulling their chain." He goes, "Why would you call those rat bastards on yourself?" I go, "Well, that's what they told us in the police academy." He goes, "Stop listening to the fucking police academy." He goes, "All right, he goes, "I gotta figure out what this is." So we drive to the apartment, right? This old time Irish captain goes, "Sit in that fucking car. Don't touch the radio. Just sit there." I go, "Okay." He grabs a clipboard. He puts his hat on, goes into the building. I'm sitting in the car like I'm fired. Like it was a great 20 minutes as a cop. Like
Yeah.
I've been minutes, right? 6 months and 3 days out in the street. I'm gonna get canned. I turn around. About 15 minutes later, I turn around. Here comes this big fat captain, right? He's got a man by the ear, and he's dragging the guy by the ear. And I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" He walks around to my side of the car and literally shoves his fucking dirtbag's head in the window. He goes, "Is this the fucking cop that you said you paid $100 to?" He goes, "I told you I was lying. Jesus Christ, I told you I was lying." He's shaking his head like a fucking rattle. He goes, If you call the fucking cops again and make up another bullshit story about one of my cops, I'm going to pull your ear off your fucking head. You understand?"
Oh
me?
God.
Yeah, I'm fucking sorry. And the guy runs off, right? So the captain gets back in the car. I'm like, "What the fuck is going on? Like, this is crazy."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Ferrari, you'll go far in this job if you learn to keep your mouth shut." He goes, "And report corruption when you see it, not report an asshole that fucking is making a bullshit allegation on you." So he goes, "Who told you to call IB?" And I tell him, "This Italian cop." He goes, "Why would you listen to that jerk off? He's got 15 minutes more on the job than you." So this Italian cop is sitting on the corner eating a cannoli because we're an Italian neighborhood. This Irish captain pulls up. He goes, "Hey, Mussolini, get the fuck over here," and just abuses him. He goes, "Why would you tell this jerk off," pointing to me, "to call internal affairs on himself?" So we settled it, and that was the end of it. But it was things like that early in my career. I'm like, what did I get myself involved in? Like, that would never go on today. Like, probably nowadays, if I called internal affairs on myself, they would put me on modified assignment pending a lengthy investigation. But back then, it was a lot different.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, and it seems like such a tug of war of being like, okay, well, like, I don't want to get in trouble, so maybe I should report this. And then the guy, the captains or whatever, the guy's like, "Don't fucking report stupid shit like that." Like, just back and forth of just a bit of a conflict in your.
Yeah, it's like you see a mole on your arm and you convince yourself you have cancer before you go to the dermatologist.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, you pull a groin muscle and you've convinced yourself you got a hernia. And the next thing you know, you're in the doctor's office and he's playing ping pong with your balls. You know what I mean? It's you can convince yourself of anything if you really let your mind go.
Yeah. So you got some?
Oh, yeah, I was just say, just because you're talking about times changing and stuff. What was the biggest difference between like you're at the beginning in '87 and you're towards the end in 2007? What's the biggest difference between just your day to day and what you're going through?
The supervisors were getting younger. So, I mean, shame on me for not taking civil service exams, but I never wanted to be a supervisor because I'm not big on telling anybody what to do. That was difficult for me because here I am in my late 30s, early 40s, and I've got to listen. I'm working a parade or a demonstration, and I got to listen to some wet behind the ears 25-year-old that's got his, doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I got to listen to him. So that was. I mean, for me, that's what I struggled with.
Because if you're thinking about what you were like at 25, you're like, what the hell? There's no way I could tell.
Yeah, but I wasn't telling anybody what to do. You know what I mean?
Just thinking back, like I remember what I was like. I wasn't telling anybody. How is this dude like?
You know what's funny? What I noticed in the police department, there were a lot of guys. We call them empty suits. Guys that don't make arrests. Guys that hide. Those guys that sit in a radio car and respond well after the bad guy is gone. They show up after the fact and take a report as opposed to canvassing and looking for the bad guy or rushing there. Those are the guys that tend to take the supervisor tests. And it's the wildest thing. You'll see some jerk off a dirtbag that for 10, 15 years hid. And then the next thing you know, he's like, "Go get him, make this arrest, grab that guy." I got a couple of stories like that in my books where it's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah.
Like, this guy didn't even know where his handcuffs were. And now he's telling people to lock up the world. It's like, yeah, he doesn't have to go to court and explain this nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. But so you said you're mostly auto theft and stuff. That's probably some of the most kind of open and shut cases in terms of just like, oh, you have a car that's not yours. Like, that's for sure kind of a guilty thing in terms of.
Yeah, but what's like we did everything. Like I would go and pick off garden variety car thieves, right? We did lengthy investigations with chop shops and rings, insurance fraud cases, the mafia, the body shops. But we also like I was an expert in identifying cars with the vehicle identification number change, right? So that would get a little hairy with classic cars, right? So you get a
Okay.
phone call from some guy. I had a 1968 Camaro that was stolen in the Poconos at a car show, and I see it driving around in Queens. So I'm like, before I stop this guy and like crease his fender looking for a hidden number, you got to tell me everything you can about that car. And sometimes they were right. Like sometimes a guy would tell me, that's my car. I know for a fact my kid threw up in the back seat. And if you see in the back seat, the carpeting was changed, or there's a stain on the carpet, or there's a tear here. And it's like,
cigarette burn
like,
in the ceiling.
that
like,
would be the first, right, exactly.
Yeah.
A cigarette burn. And like, I would go to that car. If that thing was there, I'm like, all right, now I'm going to start digging a little bit deeper, right? Then you get people that were batshit crazy that would tell you that was their car. And it's like the guy's like, listen, I'm the original owner of this fucking thing. You can tear it apart if you want,
Yeah.
It cut both ways.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So what was kind of the bigger, like chop shops then? It sounds like there was some decent sized organizations that were getting discovered. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, before LoJack and the North Star system, I think it was called, and then GPS. I mean, you stole a car. I mean, there was no way to really track it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the five boroughs, the city of New York, we were averaging in the 90s 150,000 stolen vehicles a year.
Oh, wow.
So it was like shooting fish in the barrel. I could throw you two guys in the back seat of a car and like, come on, we're gonna go pick off a stolen car. I mean, as long as you had a computer in the car and you knew what to look for, you were gonna find something. I mean, you're either gonna recover a stolen car, or you're gonna catch some balloon head driving around in one.
Yeah.
And there's different types of car thieves, right? So like you've got the pests, the pain in the asses. That's children, right? So you got teenagers. Stealing a car is a rite of passage in the criminal world. They're going to school with the car. They're going to the movies. They're driving around. They're showing their girlfriend how cool they are. Then you got junkies, drug addicts. They steal cars to commit other crimes, or usually they're homeless. So they want, they'll commit crimes with the car and then go in a park or something and get high and pass out. They treat it like their house.
Yeah.
They're easy to spot because those are the guys you'll see like you are illegally parked stickers still glued to their window, or that bullshit tire when you get a flat and they give you that little balloon tire that's supposed to be good for 40 miles, but they'll drive it for 500 and it never gets a flat. That you'll see. You'll see the plates change. They never run the car through a car wash. You'll see in the old days, the lock is punched, or the vent window that they used to have, they'll have cardboard or put fucking saran wrap. There's just so many ways to spot a stolen car. Well, there were, before key fobs and everything like that. Then you've got like the mid-range car thieves, and that's guys, one of you guys, I'm friends with you guys, I'm mechanically inclined, you blow the motor on your 2006 Honda Accord, I'll go steal one for you, we'll put it in your garage, we'll take the motor out. Another guy that'll fucking take a tow truck and he'll fucking dump it 6 blocks from here. And then you got the professional car thieves. Those are the guys, they stop by, they take orders. They're on that phone all the time. They go by the body shops. What do you need? I need a 2008 Nissan Maxima with Bose speakers. I mean, they shop to order.
Damn.
You know what I mean? And then you have those guys too. I mean, they get paid well for what they do. And they steal for chop shops, body shops, junkyards, and guys that export stolen vehicles out of the country.
Damn. Yeah, it definitely seems like quite a organization with some of them to where
oh yeah, there's a whole
very
hierarchy.
arranged. That's wild. So something I want to ask based on the dates you were there, were you near the towers when 9/11 happened? Because that must have been the biggest shock, in terms of just like a normal day turning into probably one of the more stressful days as a cop.
Yeah, that I'll never forget. It was election day, was a Tuesday, and that particular morning, so my office was in the Bronx, And that particular day, my sergeant and I were supposed to go down to Manhattan. The courthouse literally is down like a couple of blocks away from the Twin Towers. I locked this guy up for a couple of stolen cars, and he was going to become a confidential informant. He was going to give us a DMV employee. I think it was up in Harlem that was pumping out. Basically, would put anybody's name on a driver's license.
Oh, shit.
So we were going to get him out of jail and work with him to do a sting to get this DMV employee. That's what he said, at least. And what wound up happening is I was supposed to be down at court at 9 a.m. So I started my shift at 7 a.m. in the Bronx, and I'm waiting on my sergeant. We got to get out of my office no later than 8 to drive all the way down to Manhattan and find parking. My sergeant comes breezing into the office an hour late. And I'm like, dude, we got the prosecutor waiting on us. We got the defense attorney waiting on us. They're going to get pissed. Yeah. And he's farting around. One of the cops from downstairs comes running into our office and says, put on the news. A plane just hit the Twin Towers. So we got the news on. We're watching, and then the second plane hit. So when the second plane hit, obviously we knew it was terrorism. They told us, get into uniform, stand by. And I was down at ground zero walking around by about 1:30 in the afternoon.
Damn.
And it was fucking wild. It was like something out of a movie. It was like a nuclear holocaust. The sun, the closer you got to the towers, the darker it was, because the sunlight wasn't really making it through all those particles of, asbestos and dust and everything else. And it was just wild. I mean, the closer you got, and I tell this all the time, and everything was covered in that dust and gook. But like walking down Broadway, I saw thousands upon thousands of women's high heel shoes, because all the women that worked in the financial district can't run in heels. They took their heels off and just threw them and took off. And nothing made sense. There was a guy in a spacesuit that walked by us with a fucking Geiger counter. Like, this guy with the government, or is this a guy from New Jersey that had a Geiger counter who's waiting for today? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, and I wasn't about to stop him. So, I mean, there was just all sorts of crazy shit going on. And I was down there from like 1:30 in the afternoon. I didn't go home till 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And they told us, be back tomorrow at 5:30. We're doing this again. Yeah. So they had us going for the first week. Then they pulled us back, and then we were going to the dump because I worked in auto crime. So all the debris was going out to a dump in Staten Island. They had us chopping up the cars because so many vehicles were crushed. Yeah. They wanted to make sure there wasn't anybody trapped in the cars. And then they were also afraid people were going to put in phony insurance claims saying my car was lost down in the trade center. So we were doing that for a while. It was wild. I mean, nothing in my career could have prepared me for that. It's like a kid. I felt like a kid. Like when I first saw the pile, I'm like, when you're a child and you see something for the first time that doesn't make sense to you, like, how does that even happen? How does that even work? That's kind of how I felt. But, you get through it. We did that for a couple of months, and then they pulled us back. Because, I mean, the NYPD's got 35,000 members. So
right, yeah.
Pretty good about rotating us in and out, that we weren't there too long.
Yeah. Right before we sat down, I did the math real quick, and I was like, "Oh shit! I wonder if he experienced that firsthand." That is wild.
Yeah, I was there.
Damn. Yeah. So what are some other more just kind of like, obviously that's probably pretty high up on the list of just kind of most unbelievable moments, but any sort of other times where you kind of had that feeling of just like, even being a few years into the job, being like, "Oh man, I'm a little bit over my head here," like.
Oh yeah, I mean, sure, all the time. It's this time, like, especially like I was always looking for an arrest. So and it's like anything else in life. If you look for trouble, you're gonna find it eventually. You keep turning rocks over, you're gonna find it. Yeah, I mean, early in my career, I made a couple of really good gun arrests. Guy I worked with one time, we pulled over a gypsy cab, and there was a teenager in the back seat. He had a fully automatic MAC-10,
holy shit,
45 caliber machine gun. Just driving around in the back seat of a cab in the Bronx. I'll tell you guys a good story. In my book, NYPD Law and Disorder, there's an opening chapter called "Embarrassing Moments," and that story I told you about the captain pulling the guy around by his ear is in there. But so it's early '90s. My partner and I see this cab go by. There's a passenger in the back seat, kind of with his head close to the driver, and we had a lot of cab robberies. So let's just see if that cab driver's all right. We go to pull him over. Now the cab starts burning lights. So we pull the cab over, and in the back seat, there's three amigos passing around a brown paper shopping bag, and the bag rips open and there's 4 kilos of coke in there. So we placed them under arrest, right? I go into the station house and it's like I won the fucking Stanley Cup. I'm parading around with 4 kilos of coke. Everybody's coming over, taking photos with me, and this is fucking great, right? So the coke goes down to the lab, the amigos go down to court. I've got to go to court later that night and speak with a district attorney to draw up the arrest to file an accusatory instrument, right? I'm still in uniform. I drive down to the courthouse. It's in the dead of winter. And the courthouse, basically, it's not a great neighborhood. And after 5 o'clock, it's a ghost town. There's nothing really to eat. There's a diner down the block, but I hated that place. So they had just opened up a new shopping center across the street from the district attorney's office that had a nice food court. I'm like, oh, this is a nice treat. I'll get something nice to eat, celebrate my arrest. I go in there. I get an Italian dinner. I get meat, chicken parmesan, a veal parm, and spaghetti. Ooh. I'm sitting there in my uniform. I'm like, this is great. I'm going places. I got, this is a great arrest. My stomach goes. Like throughout my whole life, I've always had problems with my stomach. Like, oh man, I got to take a dump. I got to go bad, right? And I'm like, I'm not going to the courthouse across the street because that's like a dungeon. Fucking missing toilet paper. I'm like, oh great, the food court. The bathroom's gonna be brand new, right? I go into this bathroom. It's like a cathedral. No one's taken a dump in there before. It's antiseptically clean. There's not a soul in there. I go into the stall. I shut the door. I take off my gun belt. I put my gun belt on the hook. I drop my pants. I sit down. I'm getting ready for liftoff, right? Next thing I know, I hear the bathroom door kick open. And I hear 4 or 5 teenagers roughhousing. They're hitting the fucking the hand dryers. They're turning on the sinks. They're just banging into the walls. I'm like, fuck. Yeah, I'm a cop in uniform, but I'm vulnerable. I got my fucking pants down.
Yeah, shit.
Right, taking a shit. So next thing you know, it gets really quiet. And I'm like, did they leave? Did they see the legs under the stall? They decide to knock this shit off, right? I'm like, I better finish this up and get going, right? I'm sitting on the ball and I look up. One of the kids went into the next stall, jumped up on the toilet, and is now reaching over the stall wall to grab my gun belt off the hook. I went, motherfucker. So I jump up with my left hand trying to pull up my pants. With my right, I grab him around the neck. And when I pull him, what do? I inadvertently pull him closer to the gun belt. Now he grabs onto the gun belt.
Holy shit.
I'm like, oh shit. So now I let go of my pants with my left hand and I'm just throwing roundhouses, right? Just punching the shit out of him. I'm like, let go of the fucking gun belt, right? While I'm fighting with him, his friends burst into the next stall. They grab him around the waist. And now I'm doing a fucking tug of war with this kid over there. So now the aluminum wall is bucking, right? Those things aren't like built for a 135-pound kid, right? The thing is like, the kid finally lets go of the gun belt. The gun belt hits the floor. He's all sweaty. The shirt's coming off. I let go of him or he slips out of my fingers. They go crashing into the next stall, right? I get my pants on. I get my gun belt on. I come running out. They're gone. I run into the food court. There's like a 300-pound porter with like one of them floor buffing machines you saw in high school with his fucking Walkman on. I'm like, dude. He takes off the Walkman. He looks at me. I go, did you see a bunch of kids run through here? He looks up, burps, and goes, no. So like in the book I write, what was I supposed to do at this point? Call the police on myself?
Yeah.
The responding cops that would have showed up from that precinct, I would have been the fucking laughing stock of the Bronx had I gone
almost
that route.
got shot while shitting. Yeah, that would have been.
They would have got confused. So I was like, that story would have circulated through the Bronx. I mean, law enforcement community is very tight-knit. So I decided to keep the story to myself until I decided to write this book.
Yep.
And I said, you know what? That's a pretty good story. I should throw that one in there.
That is awesome. Yeah, that would have been, just such a big high from that one arrest down to...
Right, exactly right. I was on top of the world.
Yeah.
Then I was like, you know what? My luck, that fucking coke is going to come back as baby, lactate or baby.
Drywall.
No, it didn't. It was the real deal.
The good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really I guess, a lesson right there within itself of just like to never get too cocky on just the kids are going to bust in while you're taking a dump.
100% right. Don't get ahead of yourself.
So one thing when I kind of panned through a couple podcasts and read some of your synopses and stuff, it seems like a lot of cops from other places and countries even would come to come get a tour from the NYPD.
Yeah.
So it seems like that happened a weird amount. And I guess how often that happened and kind of why, just to see like one of the more interesting places get, how it works.
Well,
like,
cops are nosy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it. I mean, I went to Europe a couple of times, and as soon as I saw a cop, I'd like show them my police ID and like just thought, if they spoke English, just, how does it work and how does things work?
Yeah.
So every now and then, because New York City is always, it's the biggest police department in the world. So we had, I'll tell you two quick stories. So I worked in this unit, and LoJack was becoming a thing, the tracking device, and our LoJack liaison said, listen, I got these guys from the Moscow Police Department. Can I bring them by tomorrow? So, yeah, I don't care, right? So, we're expecting these guys in suits and stuff. These guys look like bouncers at a fucking club. Like, they were middle-aged men. They had fucking, like, hands, like, they look like fucking mitts. You know what I mean? Like, all smoking cigarettes with, like, the furry hats and shit. I mean, it wasn't dead of winter, but still, like, these guys... all business. So we're showing them, the building and everything. And they were like kids with the police car putting the sirens on. And so, when the tour was over, there was like one guy that spoke English. He was probably a fucking KGB agent, right? He's like, we have a gift for you, and they gave us these. I got it somewhere in the house. If I knew I was going to tell the story, I would have brought it out. It was like this. It looked like an Olympic gold medal. No, not a gold, a bronze medal.
Okay.
And it said something in Russian that, for all I know, said "kiss my Ruski ass."
Yeah.
But it said it was supposed to be something like the 60th anniversary of the Moscow police. But it was really nice of them to give to us, right? And we had nothing for them. Like, we're sitting around like typical NYPD fashion. Like, no one said, "Listen, we should give these guys something." So I go, "All right, just stand by." So I run upstairs with a couple of guys. I grab a garbage bag, a black fucking Glad bag, and we start going through our lockers, throwing old nightsticks and hats and shit that's going in the garbage, but it's got NYPD written on it, right? We come down in a garbage bag.
Yeah.
I felt like such a scumbag. These guys didn't give a fuck. That bag got ripped open. Like, these guys were fighting over shit. I love hot. You know what I mean? Like, we had to do a second fucking trip upstairs. And this guy I worked with, who's a real smart ass, he goes, "No wonder they fight over toilet paper." I go, "You better shut the fuck up." Like, you see the size of these guys? Like,
we just gave them weapons too.
Oh, they're bigger than your friend over here. So the other story I have was, I was a detective in auto crime, and I hear. So we were in different teams, and I heard a sergeant talking to two guys in his team. They were arguing. And the sergeant said, "Listen, there's a representative from the Tokyo Police Department. I want you guys go into Manhattan, pick him up, and give him a tour of the Bronx." And a friend of mine, I'm still very close to him, he goes, "What the fuck am I supposed to show him in the Bronx? Yankee Stadium, a chop shop?" And the sergeant goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Here's $20. Take him out for lunch." He goes, "Where the fuck am I going to take this guy for $20 for a nice lunch, right?" So my friend was pissed, and him and his partner leave. So I just thought it was funny. I just kind of caught the conversation, was going one ear out the other. About an hour and a half later, this guy returns, this detective, and I see him fishing around for keys for another car. And I go, and I made a joke of it. I go, "Where's Tokyo Joe?" And he goes, "You want to see something funny?" I said, "Yeah." And I love this guy. We're still good friends. He goes, "Come on, I got to show you something." So we go into the parking lot. And sitting in the back seat of a filthy Buick Century, there's a little Japanese guy laid out in the back seat in a salmon-colored polo shirt with an expensive camera on the floor and a half a bottle of Gatorade. I go, "What the fuck happened to him?" He goes, "Too much sake." He goes, "He was out last night with the Vice guys." He goes, "He's fucking hungover." He goes, "He's falling asleep in the car." He goes, "I'm just going to leave him in the back seat of the." He goes, "I'm going to leave him in the back seat of the car." He goes, "Come on, I got $20. Let's go get lunch." I go, "You can't leave him in the fucking back seat of a fucking police car in the South Bronx." He goes, "He fucking sleep it off. Come on, let's go." So me and his partner and this guy jump in the car. We get lunch. We come back an hour later. We go into the parking lot, and Tokyo Joe is gone. We go, "Oh, fuck." So we're in a really bad neighborhood. If he came out of that parking lot and made a right, he's going towards the housing projects.
With his nice
A
camera.
Japanese guy with an expensive camera in that neighborhood is going to get robbed, right? If he makes a left and makes it back to the precinct and the sergeant figures out that we abandoned this guy, there's going to be heads rolling. Like, you can't leave a fucking guy that doesn't speak a word of English in the South Bronx, right? With an expensive camera.
Yeah.
So They jump in their car and they start canvassing the neighborhood. I run back to the office. And when I go into the office, I run into their sergeant and he goes, "Did you see them with that Japanese guy?" And I'm like, "No." So I knew he didn't make the left, right?
Yeah.
So I grab a set of keys, I jump in a car, and now I start driving around the neighborhood. About 10 minutes later, about 3-4 blocks away, in the South Bronx on abandoned buildings and sometimes not abandoned buildings, when someone gets killed, be it a drug dealer or it is a civilian, they'll paint a mural of him on the side of the wall. So this drug dealer, what the fuck was his name? Kilo, had his picture, his mural, and his beloved dog Tray Bag, which is $3 worth of weed. There was a mural on the side of an abandoned building, and as I come and driving down the block, Tokyo Joe, there's a little Japanese guy with an expensive camera taking photos at the mural. So I slam on the brakes, right? He stops, he turns around, and I got my detective shield out. And he's like, "Oh," he comes running over, and he was like, I'm not a tall guy, but he was short. Like, he hugged me around the waist. I felt like someone that lost their kid in Disney World. So I throw him back in the radio car, and I get on the radio, and I tell my two friends, like, I got to be cryptic. I'm like, "I found what we're looking for," like something like that.
Yeah, vague to.
So we get back to the parking lot, and my two friends they're laying into this guy. "You stupid motherfucker! Why would you?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, he gets it. It's like he gets it. Don't stop yelling at this poor guy.
Yeah.
So they took him back to his hotel where he slept it off. And then their sergeant starts busting their balls about, "Did you get a receipt?" He goes, like, how did it go? And they go, "Fine." And he goes, "Did you take him out to lunch?" "Yeah." It sounded like parents asking their kid how their school day was.
Yeah. What did he get?
So, like, what were they supposed to do? Tell him that we almost lost this fucking guy? So he goes, "Oh, do you got a receipt for lunch?" And Daddy goes, "Bodegas don't give receipts," which is a little candy store where we got our sandwiches.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Perfect.
that's a story from, I think, Law and Disorder.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was interesting that they were just kind of coming to check out tours. But yeah, I guess if it is the biggest like police force in one of the most diverse cities, it's good learning project to kind of just see how things are working elsewhere.
Yeah, those were my two. I'm sure there's more, but those are the ones that really stand out to me, because the Japanese guy that went missing, like, he
that
could
could've
be
been
on an
bad.
episode of Unsolved Mysteries, and have you seen this man? Like that, he wasn't built or equipped to handle the South Bronx. And the Russians, they would have cleaned house. Those guys were fucking no joke.
So, what do you got?
I was just say, obviously your stories have like a comedy element to them. Obviously they're great stories. Have you ever thought about, these books get a movie deal? Who's playing Vic Ferrari?
Oh man, well, Vic Ferrari in his 20s, I don't know. Like, if they were gonna portray me now, I'd love like Gary Oldman,
Okay.
or De Niro or something. I'm a little taller than Joe Pesci, so that's not gonna work. I don't know, man. That's a really good. I'd have to think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would definitely be watching that.
That's a good question.
Hey, gotta be ready for when they come with that big, 7-figure deal.
I think they'll make those decisions for me and tell me to
Yeah,
sign the line and keep my mouth shut.
I also saw there's a Vic Ferrari band. I don't know if you saw that. It's like a cover band. It just appears to be no affiliation, but I thought that was interesting.
No. And then there's another Vic Ferrari that wrote a book like 30 years ago about how to get out of a loveless marriage.
Oh, shit.
So that's not my book.
It's a hell of a name, by the way. It definitely is, immediately catches attention, Vic Ferrari.
Yeah, especially I worked in the auto crime division, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. So any other just kind of like, favorite stories you have? Anything particularly like?
What do you want to hear? Okay, you want funny and dangerous?
Yeah.
that's
Let's
perfect.
get a funny and dangerous.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll tell the Hansel and Gretel story because that's one of my favorites.
Okay.
So it's the early 90s. In my early 20s, and cops go to cop bars and mingle with cops from other precincts. So, we're hitting on girls at the bar, and there was this cop who worked in the next precinct who on the side was an amateur magician.
Okay.
So we're talking to girls at the bar, and the magician would come over every fucking time, and he starts pulling flowers out of his sleeve and pulling coins behind girls' ears and the fucking balloon out. He's cock blocking us with magic, right? So I go to his partner, who actually became my partner later on in life. We used to call him Cancer because he killed more people than cancer. But anyway, Cancer work with the magician. So I say, would you get him the fuck out of here? Like, he's just ruining our act. And he goes, you know, I wish this guy would take his NYPD career as seriously as he did his magic act. So a couple of weeks later, the magician and Cancer get called to this 6-story walk up in the South Bronx. And the call is calls for help in the basement apartment. They go into the basement. It's on at midnight. There's 2 doors. They go to door number 1. They start banging on the door. Nobody answers. My old partner goes to knock on door number 2, and the magician stops him. The magician goes, don't knock on that door. We made all this noise down here with our radio. If anybody called the police, they would have come out. My old partner, Cancer, goes to knock on the door again. He goes, come on, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. They leave. What they didn't realize was behind door number 2, the superintendent of the building was selling coke out of the apartment. And he got addicted to it. And he fell behind on his payments to his wholesaler. Well, in the drug world, they don't send friendly notices or cancel your cable, right?
Right.
So what they did was, it's an old gypsy trick. They brought an attractive female with them. She knocks on the door. The super's a cokehead. He sees this hot-looking chick. He opens the door. They bum rush him into the apartment. They're fucking pistol whipping him, beating his ass. Where's the money? Where's the drugs? He don't got the answers. They shoot him in the head. They roll him up in a carpet. They take him out of the apartment, and they throw him in the furnace.
Holy shit.
So while he's going up like a Puerto Rican fire log, they go back to the apartment, and now they're ransacking the apartment. While they're ransacking the apartment, Cancer and the magician are outside about to knock on the door. So they come up with a plan. The 2 guys tell the girl, who she's in on it, they go, listen, if those 2 fucking cops knock on the door, let them in and lead them towards the kitchen. And I think they were Yugoslavian. Just start talking in Yugoslavian and keep pointing to the kitchen. Once you pass the threshold of this doorway, throw yourself on the floor. We'll come back around. We'll kill the cops. We'll throw them in the incinerator, and we'll get the fuck out of here. We'll just, go for the trifecta.
Yeah, that's a plan.
Yeah, damn.
They never knock on the door.
Ooh.
So they leave. About a week or 2 later, the super's got family. What the fuck happened to this guy? They go to the detectives. He's vanished. The detectives get involved. They see the apartment's been ransacked, and they see that there was a 911 call there the weekend or 2 weekends before. So they bring in my old partner and the magician. They go, did you notice anything different? No. But my old partner said, the thing is, when we were leaving, there was a car parked on a fire hydrant, and I gave it a ticket. Well, that was the getaway car.
Okay.
And that belonged to the female. So they bring the female in, and then she rats out everybody, of course, trying to distance herself from being in on it and using her car. They get the 2 hitmen, they lock her up. Then they had to go back to that building in the middle of the winter, like February, and shut the fucking heat off for like a day.
Oh my god.
So that thing would cool off to get the guy's skull and bones out of the furnace. So that's a story from the NYPD's Flying Circus, Cops, Crime, and Chaos. I think that one's called Last Night a Magician Saved My Life.
Okay, yeah. Old magician's trick to yeah, that's brutal to just all right, we'll just fit 2 more bodies in there and be good to go. Like that is wild.
Yeah, they were these guys were all business,
Holy shit. Well, God, I mean, that's probably a good note to end it on. That's a crazy outro there.
Yeah, if people want to hear more of your stories, where's the best place to get your books?
All my books are on Amazon. Just look up Vic Ferrari and all my books are paperback for $10 and ebook download for $2.99.
Oh, right on.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll get some of those links in the description. And
Thank you.
Sounds like you got quite a few stories. Can't get them all in one episode. So maybe when that next book comes out, we can have you back on, hear a couple more.
Anytime.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, man, this is awesome.
I'll let you know when this is up. I'm gonna try to get it up in 8 hours or so. I'll get it up pretty quick.
Send me the link. I'll post it.
Hell yeah. Sure. Thanks so much for coming on, Vic. It was a blast.
Yeah, man. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one. See ya.